All right, we're here. We're back. We're here for the episode. We're live and in living color the first week of February. How are we doing today, Mandy?
Amani, I started an accidental squat squad. I have to
Okay.
tell I have to
Tell,
tell you
tell the
about
audience. Tell
this.
the audience. Yes.
This is how I started my February. So, a couple weeks ago, I read this article that if you do 10 air squats every 45 minutes over an 8.5 hour period, it actually balances your blood sugar and is healthier for you than doing 40 to 60 minutes of a walk every day. And
Oh,
I always try and get like 40 to 60 minutes of a walk in every day, in addition to whatever workout I do. But I read this. I'm like, well, that's kind of fun. And it, not that it would be easy to do, but I thought I'd give it a shot. I didn't say, hey, I'm doing this as a challenge. I just posted the article and I got a bunch of DMs of people like, I'm in. I'm in. I didn't say, like, are you in? People were like, I'm in. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm forming a squat squad. So then I created this little group on Instagram and it's people from around the world that I know that, but they don't know each other. So that's also been really fun. Like I've got girlfriends from Ohio. I've got like Natalie Fulton from our MPI
nice.
board.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got like strangers of each other. I know them, but they don't know each other. And so February 1st, this Saturday, we all started squatting and it's been hilarious because people are videoing themselves squatting on the golf course. They're like, somebody videoed themselves squatting, getting a sandwich from Mona Lisa. I rode a train on Saturday. I had to do 2 rounds of squats while I was on the train. Like it's been super fun. So at some point in the interview, my alarm is going to go off. I'm going to have to squat. So just
Okay.
giving you a warning. I'm doing a squat
Yeah.
challenge this month, and it's been so far so great. We're only 3 days in.
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Very interesting.
It's very
Uh,
interesting. What about
yeah.
you, Amani? I feel like things are moving and grooving with your book right now, and I'm very
Mhm.
curious what's happening.
Yes. So we're about 2 weeks out from launch date. Tomorrow I'm headed to the local Fox channel to do an interview live. So that's a big,
What?
yes, yes. So that's big. Yeah, that's happening tomorrow.
Is
First
it
of
the
hopefully
morning
many.
spot or what is it?
It's like at 10 o'clock. It's one of their morning shows. So
Oh,
yeah.
good.
So we'll kind of do that. And then I got a couple others that are happening. So that's exciting.
Awesome.
Um, and then ironically, I had applied to speak at MPI ACE, the same conference that you had spoken at last year.
Yeah, Northern California.
Initially, in Northern California, I got a decline. Then they sent me another message late last week, so they wanted to talk to me. So it turns out that they do want me to come there to speak. So they just sent over the contract this morning. So that's good.
Amazing. Oh,
Yes,
Amani,
yes,
that's so great.
right, right.
Which
So that was
speech are you going to deliver?
the unlocking your creativity speech for Zillion and Brent, unlocking your creativity. So that's really good because before, remember last week we were talking about no's and how to handle no's. So this one turned around really quickly.
As they do, as they
And
do.
then I got this package in the mail, so I'll open it up as we're talking because I
Ooh.
believe it is like the hardcover version of the book.
Oh.
Yes. So you see the hardcover version of the book
Oh
right
my
here.
gosh. Listeners, Amani is holding up a beautiful, glossy
Yeah.
book. It is a beautiful, thick book. The Quiet Storm. Get it. It's on pre-sale right now. Amani, that's so pretty.
Yeah.
Is that a slip cover over the hardcover?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh,
So it's
that's
like a
nice.
yeah, slip cover. Like you see the little hardcover, then it flips over. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see it. Oh, congratulations. How exciting. Amani, how
Yeah.
do you like it? How's it look?
It's beautiful. It's nice. Yeah, it's thick there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Sarah. Um, so Sarah's joining us in the chat, one of my former students. So yep, so that happened. So all these things are happening. I hope that next week's episode, which we'll talk about later, by then maybe I have some more kind of press appearances that will happen and stuff. So all sorts of things. So if you're watching, listening, make sure you go to thequietstormbook.com to order it. If you send me an email with your order number, I'll send you the bonuses. And there you go. That's what's up with me. That's plenty.
Amani, it's so much. I mean, your book. So I've pre-ordered it. You can go on
Yes.
Amazon and
Hmm.
pre-order it, and then it comes to you February 18th. But
Yes.
I just for the other listeners, I got an advanced copy of it, an
Yes.
electronic copy, and I have been reading it because next week Amani is going to be the guest on our show, and I'm going to interview him and ask him all about the book. So I've got a lot of homework to do between now and when, but I already
Yeah,
started reading it, and it is so interactive. Like
yeah,
I've been asking my mom about songs you've been bringing up. Scoot and I played a couple of the songs that were in
mhm,
there we didn't
yeah,
hear.
yeah.
It's so good. And I don't even like R&B music. That's full disclosure. I'm learning so much. It makes me
Yeah,
so much smarter. So
good,
I'm
good.
excited for our interview next week, but
Yes,
I'm super excited for your
cool.
news
News appearance. So
appearance
I'll
tomorrow.
share
Yeah.
all the clips and everything.
Yeah.
Now, who do we have the pleasure of talking to today?
Amani, we've got an
Mhm.
old friend. Well, he was a new friend that we met
Yeah,
2 years ago. He's not old. He's just we met
yes,
him a couple years ago.
yes.
But he helps people meet decision makers faster through training. He's a very, very skilled training in sales, in business, with a focus on LinkedIn and in digital connections. He's trained thousands of sellers on LinkedIn, relationship building, and just in general, how to be a better meeting professional. And we first met him, he was selling Sonoma, Sonoma Tourism. We met him a couple years ago at WeCon. And I think we instantly knew like he was going to take over the world. I think as soon as we met him, we had him on the show, and it was a really, really electric experience. And I'm excited for the audience to meet him today. He's recently started his a new business, and he is the meetings industry rainmaker. So full of energy, loaded
Yes.
with LinkedIn tips today. It's exciting to bring Kurt Shaver to the show. So welcome,
Okay.
Kurt.
Welcome, Kurt. We got you on the screen. Round of applause. You should hear that applause there. Yes.
Hey, that's nice. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that great intro. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again.
Again.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
excited to have you. We'll go back and forth, ask you some questions. I mean, I have many, many questions for you, but my first one is what caused you to maybe shift away from Sonoma to kind of doing your own thing? I'm really curious because that's a journey we follow with a lot of people. So, what was your inspiration and motivation?
I think I would reframe the question. Why did I decide to get into the tourism and hospitality business for 3 years out of my 40-year career? That's probably the question.
Yeah.
So I spent 25 years in tech sales and then about 12 running my own sales training business. And then right after the pandemic, I was kind of burnt out on all that. And I was like, I want to do something. I lived in Sonoma the last 20 years. And I just decided, hey, I want to do something that was kind of more involved in the community and maybe a little different. And one of my good friends was a GM of a resort here, and he was on the tourism board. And he's like, you should do the tourism stuff. You'd love it. You know, you could go into meeting sales and all that stuff. So that, to your question, so that 3 years that I was at Sonoma County Tourism as a destination sales manager, that was actually the anomaly, I guess, of my career. And I thought I'd do it for a couple of years. I ended up doing it for 3 because I loved it. The industry is so awesome. It's fantastic. But ultimately, I kind of decided I was going to go back to my roots, due in part because I saw how incredibly effective using LinkedIn and other social was, particularly in the meetings and hospitality industry. So I thought, I'm going to take my real world experience in the industry with my background in using tools, and then I'm going to kind of take it back to people on a different level.
Okay. All right. And then from there, like, I'm curious about the difference between the sales and tech people you worked with to our community in hospitality. What's been the difference in the professionals you work with for those two areas?
I'd say there are two like really big distinct differences. There's probably many, but there's two. The two biggest ones are number one, for the most part, tech sales are very transactional. Like you only buy one cloud management system or one CRM system or one data center, and then like that's it. So the salesperson kind of moves on to new prospects and customers in general. Meeting hospitality business, completely different. It's so relationship oriented. I mean, you guys know, there's people that have worked together for 30 and 40 years. They saw their kids grow up, all this kind of thing. So that's one aspect, is it's a one-shot sale versus in some cases, many decade relationship. The other thing that's different, and again, I know we've talked about this so much. The other time is different is the meeting in the hospitality business is blessed, blessed, blessed with beautiful eye candy content, right? You're at the beach resort, you're, up in the mountains, you're at some fantastic winery, a beautiful conference center, compared to, again, a data center or cybersecurity software or, accounting algorithm, things like that, right? It's just the visual impact of it, which obviously lends itself to social media, is a huge difference. Again, it's a blessing.
I want to hang here because I like that analogy of like the hospitality industry is sexy. Sometimes the tech business isn't sexy to sell. I mean, although it's exciting to sell because the improvements you're making on people's lives or technology is super interesting. But I want to hang here on LinkedIn for a second because we just talked about the evolution of Kurt, right? We talked about tech sales to training to Sonoma to entrepreneur, but I want to talk about the evolution that you've seen in LinkedIn over the years from just a hiring website to now a brand building machine. So what have you seen being a super user of LinkedIn over time? Then I'm going to have a couple follow-up LinkedIn questions.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. In terms of it really started out as a resume job hiring thing, right? LinkedIn's 22 years old now, started in just about 22 years ago, late winter 23. So LinkedIn can buy a drink now. It's 22 years old. And yeah, so it started out, it was very resume. I was in Silicon Valley at the time. I joined it in 2005, so in their third year. And it was really all about getting a job as that online resume kind of an idea. I think as the other social media platforms came on board and people understood the content sharing, the brand building, and all those other aspects to it, along the way, salespeople realize, hey, I can use this as a great prospecting thing. I can look at people, particularly in a B2B sales setting, if you're looking for a particular ideal customer profile. If you sell to VPs of sales, or you sell to biomedical engineers, or you sell to HR professionals, you could go find them there online and learn a lot about them from a prospecting standpoint. So that's when it became really, I guess, so powerful as a sales relationship building tool.
And what do you say to people? Because I butt up against this all the time. Like I was just in a sales meeting last week and someone's like, well, how do I get more corporate customers? I was like, do you have a LinkedIn account? It's like my first thing to ask.
Right.
And there's still a philosophy out there that people are like, oh, I'm not looking for a job. I don't have LinkedIn. So what do you say to people that helps change their minds to transition them from like, guess what, friends, this is so much more robust than a hiring site. How do you change their minds on that?
Well, there's sometimes two ways. I mean, there's kind of like the intellectual argument, I guess, of giving people reasons or data or sort of things like that. But I tend to like just telling stories, just anecdotal stories to people to kind of inspire them. I mean, one that I've told for a long time is that I did a training for a company, and about 3 months after that, one of the sales people actually sent me an email and they just said, hey, I thought you would like to know this. He goes, you remember that 10-minute exercise where we re-engineered our LinkedIn headline to include our target market and our benefits rather than just account executive, right? Most people just have their title in the headline. And I said, yeah. He goes, I thought you would know that, from that 10-minute exercise, I just closed a 6-figure deal. And I was like, what?
Awesome.
And he said, well, what happened? Well, so he sold, he was a recruiting HR kind of person, right? And his use before the class, it used to say account executive. And he changed it to, I help software startup companies source and retain top programming talent. Okay. So what happened was the HR director of a software startup saw that and they're like, we need programming talent.
I need that.
They called the guy up and he signed like a long-term trainer. And again, it was like totally inbound and it took him 10 minutes to change it.
Yeah. I
That's
love
what I
that.
would call
And it just takes a couple minutes. Okay, final follow-up question. While we're here on the profile or the headline, what mistakes are people making right now with their headline, with their profile, that if they made just one little change, it could make a difference?
Well, I kind of already touched on the idea of changing your headline, so it's so
Yeah.
you can at least let your target market self-identify themselves and recognize themselves that you help their type of people, and what the benefits are. So that's one thing. But one little nugget that I actually got another good feedback from is, a while ago in your profile, in that very top level where you got the banner, you got your headshot, company, and your headline. So for a couple of years, LinkedIn has allowed you to add a website down there, right? You can
Yeah.
add a website link in that little section. So I actually learned this trick from a student of mine because I was talking to him and she said, "Oh, I'm not going to put my website in there. I'm going to put my Calendly link in there so that again, above the waterline, the top of the iceberg stuff that you see on the LinkedIn profile, it says book a call with me."
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the same story. She called me up and she was like, "Oh, I put a book a call with me linked to my Calendly thing, and somebody just like out of the blue booked a call with me." And she's like, she was a meeting planner, independent meeting planner, and she said, "Yeah, like 2 weeks later, I had a new gig." She like
That's
had
awesome.
business like out of the blue, and I thought, "Oh, I'm going to steal your idea. That's beautiful."
Yeah, that's good. I've been seeing that more and more too. People putting book a call with me or
Mhm.
schedule an appointment right in their LinkedIn profile. That's
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
So I'm going to ask a very personal question for a friend. Since if I was your student and I was launching a book, what different ways should I be activating my LinkedIn profile to share the upcoming book?
Well, I would definitely start. I definitely start change your banner image, right, and have that beautiful Quiet Storm book cover, boom, up there, and then you're probably gonna put the author if it's not already. Put author. I would include that in your headline. I would I would create something again about specific to the book. Maybe the book cover is the thumbnail, but as the lead piece in your featured section, right?
Yeah.
So I know you guys know what it is, but in case listeners don't know what it is, featured section is where you can put a little bit of like kind of fancied, sexy media on your profile, so it makes it look, it's less texty resume and a little bit more websitey. You can put videos there, graphics, links to web pages, PDF documents, etc. So the featured, I would play it up in the featured section. So those are just maybe 3 ways you could start.
Yeah. My next question would be your message to students, people who are in college about to graduate, some of my students, which I'm going to clip this and show them in class. And the message would be, what are the benefits for younger professionals about to enter the world to have a LinkedIn profile that's complete and active? Because most of them are a little reticent about LinkedIn. I don't want to put my stuff out there.
That's for old people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. What's your message to them?
Well, I mean, it's definitely going to simplify them getting a job. I assume the goal for going to college is they want to get a job. So it's going to seriously do it. The thing I would say, the thing I do say to students is, I think for them, because they don't have this huge body of work necessarily in their space, so like that's okay. Don't worry about it. I wouldn't put as much emphasis on really branding the profile as I would on connecting with people, connecting with those leaders in the industry they want to go into, all of their professors, all the advisory kind of people around there, people they meet at conferences if they go to conferences in the context of their schooling. So I think when you're just starting out, again, and you haven't done that many things to really build the brand, I would focus on the network that might get you to a job.
Yes. Great message. Hello to Jennifer Jones in the chat. Thank you for joining us. Okay, back to you, Mandy.
Well, I am asking this question for a friend. Like, not an imaginary friend like Amani just asked, but like a real friend. So I have a friend who's been in her role for about 22 years, and she is leaving this role. She's taking some time off and potentially switching industries, switching roles. So how do you transition if you've been on LinkedIn and you're established, and then you're going to take a little break and you're going to potentially reestablish yourself in a different industry or with a different moniker? Like, how does somebody best maximize their LinkedIn profile if that's their circumstance? Because I do think a lot of people are changing industries right now. A lot of people are evolving from one to the other. So how do they make it work for them in that case?
So that's a great question, and that is something I will admit to be very qualified for, because again, I spent I spent my first 17 years on LinkedIn, kind of tech oriented, and made about 20,000 tech connections and probably posted 20,000 things about tech and sales. When I went into the meetings industry, that's a hard left turn into a different set of connections, and also to the content. It's challenge with it's your brand on LinkedIn is like a flywheel. So the bigger the flywheel is good if you want to keep that flywheel going. But if you want to change flywheels, to slow down a very big flywheel and start another one is a lot of effort. And what I mean by that specifically, to get out of that flywheel analogy, is it took me, I would say, close to a year before the content algorithm that feeds my LinkedIn feed had switched to at least 50% meetings. Right. And again, part of that's because, again, this is the one time when it's better to not have a big network and not have a big brand, because my network and brand was like, so LinkedIn was like, this is a tech sales guy. I don't know what he's doing with these hospitality things, but they neglected it for the first month and the fourth month and the 8th month and the 10th month, because it hadn't outweighed what I had done the first 17 years. So, in their case, I would say a couple things. One is, they're going to have to crank up their posting in the new industry. They're obviously going to have to grow their network in the new industry. And I also purposefully tried to, I deleted a bunch of people that I knew in no way, shape, or form were ever going to do me any, they were almost just like fodder connections, but still on the tech side. So I probably deleted 1,000 connections over that a year and a half. And also, don't comment and engage on things that you're not pursuing anymore, right? Yeah. So you can't. I had to just stop. My inclination was, oh, that's like some tech sales thing. I'd learned, like, no, don't do that, because it's going to take the algorithm more time to figure out I'm over here now.
Yeah, that is actually, I think that's really good advice. And we had somebody on the show last week that said the same thing. It's like, you don't have to comment on like your cousin's sister's bachelorette party. Like the LinkedIn's going to keep showing you that. Like, be intentional about what you're commenting on, and commenting on the people and the industries that you want to engage more in, because then LinkedIn will show more of that to you and more of you to them. So I think that's a good reminder for sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on video on LinkedIn, adding video, posting video? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I like video in general. Across social media, I think it's probably more popular than it is on LinkedIn. But even on LinkedIn, I think it's good as a as an eye attractor. Maybe not as super strong as really the content communicator. So I think people are on LinkedIn are, they're pretty well trained to kind of like read the wrapper, the comment piece that precedes it. So I think if you're going to use video, that you really want to have both. You want to have both pieces to it. I mean, I don't use video that much, but when I do, the copy that I put in is almost a manuscript of the video. And so it kind of gives those people a little bit of choice as to like which medium they want to kind of consume it on. And sometimes it might depend like where that person is. If they're in a, I don't know, if they're like in a public place or something and they don't have their ear pods on, then they might like, oh, I'm not going to play this video sound wise and I'll just read it. So, but I think it definitely works just in terms of an attention getter because it's something moving.
Yeah. And then the follow-up question to that would be, what are some hidden features on LinkedIn that the majority of people will miss activating or miss kind of using that can benefit them?
Okay, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna touch on a very deep answer, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about some easy ones. So if you look at the LinkedIn profile, when I'm coaching people to upgrade them, I only talk about 10 sections of the profile. But if you break down what's actually on the profile and the sort of under the hood settings area, you go into like settings, like I don't want this data to go out and I want to be viewed by these people at this time. And if you do that, there's 300 of them. There's like 300 things you can turn on or off or higher or lower or different things like that, right? Which is, I don't get into it because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And the top 10 are really, again, it's kind of those above the waterline. Those are the real important ones type of thing to do there. But in terms of like little used features, I would say I'm going to focus just on a couple of things when you're actually posting. So, I think we're used to posting either text or text and a picture. Those are the kind of two most common pieces, or video clip of media things in there. But when you go to post, you can also do polls, and I love to do polls because there's kind of a inherent benefit to that, and then there's kind of a sneaky marketing benefit to that. The inherent is like, oh, I just want research on this. I want to know which way the market's going, or do they like red, or do they like blue or green or whatever, and you can like, okay, great, I got a little market statistic about it. But as a prospecting lead generation strategy, basically, LinkedIn's going to show you everybody that answered a particular question. So if that is a flag that they're a prospect for you, you can engage. I wouldn't go right back to them and say, hey, do you have budget for this? Right. Obviously, you want to warm them up, you want to build a relationship, you want to work your way into it. But it does uncover potential leads by looking at the poll. And then the other one that I kind of like playing around with, because it allows you to tell a little bit of story different than a video is, and I know you guys were talking to Richard Bliss about this topic, but it's the sort of, I think, no longer correctly called carousel. What they used to be called carousels, which made sense because it's like going through the slides. Now they just call it documents, which is weird, but it's a thing. Again, you can put it up, you can post it as a post, but you can also put it in the featured media section. But it allows you to tell like short little story just by slides. So it could be 3 or 4 slides or 5 or 6 slides. And you can kind of tell a little story as you go. And so I like using those two things just for a little variety and to kind of get some different output from it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So before I get to Mandy, question from an audience member. So Sarah, who's one of my former students, by the way, she says, kind of related to commenting, what type of posts would you recommend for newer users to grow engagement in their algorithm, especially for those who have entered or re-entering the workforce?
Yeah. So I would ask questions. I would say ask questions. So ask questions, like seek knowledge from people. And again, you could do that in a text. You could ask people, what's your thoughts or what's your comments on that? You can do it in a text, which I think really draws out probably a little bit more engagement. And because it's a free form response, the chances that you're going to get something really insightful are better. Or you can go to the poll. The poll is maybe a little easier for people to respond. It's kind of quick and dirty, but you're not going to get anything on the edge. You're only going to get that 3 or 4 answers that you put up on the poll. But I would just, what questions does she have? What is she trying to figure out? What is she what's the direction of this industry? Where do you see it going? What do you think is important for a new person entering in? She could ask all those questions that are in her head anyway, and just put them on LinkedIn.
Got it. Okay. Mandy, back to you.
Okay. So I have Premium. I had Navigator once upon a time. I didn't personally find any value in it, but I'm just one of many people. So what is your opinion of Premium versus LinkedIn Navigator?
I'm glad you asked me this. I mean, I get this question 2 or 3 times a month, and having used it for 20 years and trained on it for about 12 or 13 of those. So I have a very strong opinion on this. And my strong opinion is, number one, Sales Navigator, which is the highest end premium for pay feature of LinkedIn. It's about $1,200 a month, maybe $1,400 a month, somewhere in that range. The good news is I think it's probably the most powerful sales prospecting tool ever created. If used and used properly. So the bad news is most people don't need that. It's like an elephant gun. And the main reason is because this is what I always say to people. First off, if your company's going to pay for it, great, go ahead and use it.
Yeah, that was my circumstance.
You're investing without your wallet, then I say, unless at least 25% of your week is spent on pure, hardcore, outbound sales prospecting, then you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it is the elephant gun of prospecting. It is like super high powered. Where it really fits is back in my old world, where you have, floors and floors in a building of what they call sales development reps they don't even sell. Their only job is like getting somebody on a call and booking it for the account executive so they can have a call. And they are just, whether it's pounding the phones or using automated email, or now it's all AI, whatever it is, but they are prospecting like 8 or 10 hours a day, like unrelenting. In that case, it is absolutely worth it for those people. But if you're like, oh, I prospect a couple hours a week, you're like, well, then you don't need it.
Yeah, I agree too. But the Premium, though, what I love about the Premium is being able to see who's viewed your profile, and then the titles of the people, because then you can make sure that your content is hitting the people that you want to hit too. So can you talk a little bit about some of those Premium features that people might not be using?
Yeah, well, you've got that, which is a super valuable one, to actually see who is looking at your profile. Again, that's kind of a big prospect putting their hand up in some way. You've got the ability to message people that you're not connected to, which you can't do on the free LinkedIn. Again, something that's very powerful. And it just opens up a few of the things it gives you don't have on the free, and some of the features, it just gives you more of them. Like on the free version, if you can be like, oh, I can do, this many invitations in a day, and then you go to Premium, they'll raise the level. So it just allows you to kind of do more with it. Did you do an annual, or are you doing it month to month?
Annual.
Okay. Yeah, because you're kind of in a groove. But what I say to people, like, sometimes is, especially like they might be starting out or something, and I'm like, well, just do the month to month for like 2 months and see if you get output from it, if it's worthwhile, if you're using it and that type of thing. And that way, then if they're like, yeah, this is really working great, then you can convert into the, cheaper annual plan.
Got it. Okay. Now I'm going to totally switch gears for a second here, because you had mentioned that, you went from software sales to the meetings industry. And so, I want to ask a question about the use of LinkedIn for the meetings industry, but I want to look at it from 2 lenses. So 2-part question. So if I were a meeting planner, I would be doing more of this on LinkedIn. What is that?
I would say I'm weighing back and forth between posting and engaging. I mean, if I use the term engaging with content, it sort of encompasses both posting and commenting. That would really be the answer. So I would get more involved with posting, which means you started it, or commenting, which means you're jumping on and following up to it. And that's the sort of most sophisticated part of social media, and the ones that sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know about that kind of thing. But I say, like, if you were at a conference, if you were in a meeting room in a conference and there was a group of prospects standing there and you walked in and started talking to them, you're not going to get business by keeping your mouth shut, right?
Right.
So you can either respond to something someone says, or you can ask it, but you can initiate it by asking it. But being silent is not a good prospecting strategy in the real world or digitally.
Yeah, that's great. Being silent is it's not a good relationship building strategy, let alone prospecting strategy, right? Okay, so if I were a salesperson who sold to meeting planners, I would do more of this on LinkedIn. Is it the same answer, or do you have a different answer for that?
But the easy one is to say the same answer. I think, I guess the one thing that's maybe a little different if you're on the selling side, and I don't know if this is, I mean, you could work LinkedIn to it, but if you allow me to go outside of LinkedIn, I would say, and I know you guys do this, I would say, as a non-LinkedIn answer, I would say get involved with your industry association, right? Start on a committee, work your way into maybe the board, but start on a committee, get in there, volunteer. That would actually be a great answer, Amani, if I went back to you're asking me about a student, how can they get going? That's actually another great way to it just gets you in, like you're there, you're meeting people, and the people that you're coming in on the committee level, but the people that are on the board are, I mean, by and large, they're the players in your industry, right? That you want to not only establish a relationship with, but far beyond a LinkedIn connection, right? You want that actual genuine, they've seen you work, they trust you, they've seen your competence. So that I kind of answer it a little bit of LinkedIn, but also outside the LinkedIn arena.
Yeah, I love that.
A question from the chat from Jennifer Jones. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer asks, how do you feel about it when people have open to work in their profile picture?
I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's it's genuine, right? So if that's the state you're in right now, and you're open, you're looking for it, I think it's a good thing. I think it's it's putting it out there. It's clear to people. So I think it's absolutely good. And again, if you're not putting in the 40 hours at the work, again, that some of that time should probably be spent dialing up your engagement in that target market you're trying to work into.
Yeah. We are to the part of the show now where we flip the script and we let you ask both myself and Mandy any question you want to. So okay. Who do you want to ask the question to first, and what is said question?
Okay, I'm going to start with the music man.
Yes, that would be me.
And my question, it's a two-part question, because without the first part, the second part's not really interesting. Did you watch the Grammys last night? And if so, what are your thoughts or takeaways from the music industry's biggest night?
Okay. Good. So yes, I watched parts of the Grammys. I watched clips here. My takeaways are, it's a big moment when Beyonce wins both country album as well as album of the year, but she had been nominated for album of the year numerous times. She finally won. Mm-hmm. So that was a big moment. I think Kendrick Lamar, he swept all the major categories, so that was amazing, but not too surprising. But that just shows this is a song that was made in a week or less than a week and took the whole summer by storm. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like the soundtrack for LA. So that was amazing. I think Chappell Roan getting Best New Artist was so well deserved because she's amazing and the kids love her and she's just herself and she sings. That was amazing. I'm glad Sabrina Carpenter got the Best Pop Album because I'm a fan of hers. Money Long, who's an R&B singer, she won also. So I was a fan of the Grammys. I think they did a great job considering all the circumstances surrounding it before with the fires. So right. I think they did a good job, but I think they've starting to slowly but surely get more younger viewers to pay attention and to take heed, because in my class, I do an extra credit quiz where the students can predict who's going to win what category. So
Oh,
there's like 11 options. I think my best student maybe got 8 out of 11 right. So they
wow.
made predictions or whatever. So I was enthused by the Grammys.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, now the squatter.
Was there a follow-up question to mine, or that was it? That was the main question, right? That was it.
Uh, yeah,
Okay.
that was
Over to
it.
Mandy.
I'll go over to Mandy now.
Yes.
Although you might want to weigh in on this question because it's a little bit of a you two guys question. And I'm sure you've covered this before in your almost 3 years of doing adventures in business, but I didn't know it, so maybe some new listeners don't know it. So I'm kind of curious. I want to know the origin story. I kind of want to know how did you meet Amani, and how did this Adventures in Business podcast get started?
Yeah, I mean, I love this story. So Amani was the president of MPI Southern California, and I was a volunteer. And we were on a call where we were trying to boost registration for WeCon, actually, for an annual conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why don't we do a LinkedIn Live? I had just been interviewed a week before,
Uh-huh.
and everyone's like, great idea, Mandy, go for it. One of those, if
Yeah.
you have an
Right.
idea, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have to do it.
Right.
And I had no idea how to do. I was a guest, but I had no idea how to do it. And Amani's like, "I'll do it with you," because he is a live streamer. He knew how to do that. So
Yep.
he and I did these weekly LinkedIn lives, just promoting the conference. And it was 10 minutes. And one week we'd release the general session, and another week we would talk about sponsors. And then after that, we had so much fun doing that together. After that, we're like, well, this is a bummer. Like, how do we get to work together again? And I had really wanted to start a podcast, and I had just been on a book tour where, I have a business book, and all these people were coming to me saying all of their triumphs and tribulations of their businesses. And I was consumed by that, thinking, how do I share these stories with people? So then I thought, well, I wanted to do time for squats. I wanted to do a podcast where we share people's business stories. And I asked Amani, like, would you ever consider doing a podcast? He's like, yeah, he already had a podcast. But you didn't, Amani, I don't remember this. Your podcast was just you. You didn't have a co-host, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I think you had said you've been thinking about collaborating with somebody. And so then an accidental podcast was born. And that was almost 3 years ago. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did I miss any details?
I like dual host podcasts, to be honest. I think the back and forth and the variety and little different perspectives here and there just kind of keeps them fresh and stuff. So
I would agree.
yeah, and it seems to me like you're seeing more of those the last couple of years. It just maybe because we're just seeing more podcasts the last couple of years, but it seems like you're seeing a lot of.
Agree. Yeah. Nope. You didn't miss any details. That was good, Mandy. Yeah, that was good. Okay. I want to take you back, Kurt. We're going to go back to West.
While you're asking this, I'm going to do my squats off camera.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to take you back to West Lafayette, and we're going to ask you to talk to Kurt back then. What advice would you give your younger self based on all your experience? And I'm particularly interested because you made a dramatic shift in your industry and you've been successful at doing it. So, like, what advice would you really give your younger self?
I would have two different pieces of advice. So I went to West Lafayette as Purdue University. So I went to undergrad at Purdue University, and when I graduated there, I ended up going to grad school at Georgia Tech in Atlanta.
Yes.
And when I say what I got my master's in, everybody, I don't know if this is an insult or a compliment. Everybody looks at me and they're like, "What?" So I got my master's degree in electrical engineering, and I never did it. I never did it. It was boring. Once I got through the first semester, I was like, man, I just can't be an engineer. I can't do it. But I sort of played the hand out and finished it all up, and then I went right into tech sales. So that would be one. I would be like, you don't need a master's in electrical engineering. Skip that. That was kind of a wasted year and a half. The other one, I guess I would say, is so I spent 13 years in Atlanta before moving to Silicon Valley. And my wife and I loved Atlanta. Atlanta is awesome. Nothing like Atlanta in the springtime with the azaleas and dogwoods pop in. It's absolutely beautiful. Made many great friends, and it's a beautiful town. But I got to Silicon Valley in '99. 99. That was a long time ago.
Well,
1999.
what a time to be in Silicon Valley, though.
Yeah, it was a time to be in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, it was the last year of the .com boom, because a year after I got there, everything exploded and cratered and went out of business and everything. So it was a crazy, super fast, really exciting time to be in Silicon Valley. But yeah, I wish I had moved there maybe 5 years earlier, just to kind of get in more on the ground floor of that first round of the .com. But those are the only two. Those are pretty minor.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, over to you, Manny, to close us out.
Well, I have a question, because you have experience with so many salespeople in all different industries. You see it in the field, you see it from a leadership perspective. So I have a question about, your interaction with salespeople. You did a poll at the beginning of the year, and you had asked salespeople what their top priorities were for their sales success in 2025. And it looks like almost 60% answered that they want to expand your network of buyers, right? And wanting to do something and actually taking action and doing something are two totally different things. And at the beginning of the year, we're all filled with piss and vinegar. We want to do a bunch of stuff, but what do we really actually do is a different story. So when you are interacting with salespeople, what are the best things that people are doing to expand their network, of buyers? And what are some errors that they're making that's preventing them from expanding their network to buyers?
Yeah. Okay, great. So to answer kind of the first one, what should they do? What are they doing that works? I would say probably the easiest one is when you come across anybody in your business universe, or possibly business universe, it might be somebody you meet at a dinner party. You're like, what do they do? Maybe yes or no, they're in my business universe. But I would say, definitely if they're even close to being in your business universe and you met them in real life, then absolutely, for sure, like invite them to your LinkedIn into your LinkedIn network, right? Like you want them in the fold, as opposed to somebody that you just, connected to totally in the virtual world. Like you did a search, you found them on LinkedIn and you invited. That's a different thing. But I'm just saying, anybody that you actually come across and maybe have a conversation with or something like that, you think might down the road, you could help them, they could help you, absolutely connect with those. In terms of things that I wouldn't recommend or don't work, that type of thing, it would be anything that falls under the title of a salesperson pouncing on a prospect, or anything that's sort of like not authentic or too sort of mass marketing driven by technology, right? So it'd be like, don't subscribe to some LinkedIn hacking software that's going to send out 1 million AI invitations overnight, right? Don't do it. People, we all know, because we've all got them. Like you can just smell if one of those comes in and it's like not real. You're like, there's something off about this. Sometimes you can't even put your finger on it, but you're like, this is not. Richard Bliss actually has a really great technique for doing that with his dot, right? That's how he does it.
Yeah.
My favorite is when somebody asks me, that tells me, you can really grow your network by writing a book.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, so you didn't see the book cover in my profile?
You don't know how many, same thing. Yeah, like you don't know how many instant pitches I get, for me to get trained on LinkedIn, so they can teach me LinkedIn. Yeah. Right, it'd be like teaching Amani how to run the turntable or something. So, right? Yeah, that's what I would say.
Great advice.
Great advice. Yes. How can we best support you? We have your LinkedIn profile there. What are some other ways where we can kind of spread the word about what you're doing and help you kind of build your own network?
Yeah. Well, just to clarify, I'll tell you just two things. So to clarify kind of for people, so I'm really focused now on training sales teams. I don't train individuals. So I do sales teams. It might be a DMO or a CVB. For non-industry listeners, that would be like a convention and visitors bureau and all of their hotels and venues and partners and things like that. It's really anybody that might have a group, right? It could be a hotel chain, anything like that in the meetings industry. So I just work with teams. But if there's individuals here, they could be either individual solopreneurs themselves, or they might be part of a big team, but they're like, my company never does any training. It's all up to me. Then I would recommend you connect with my younger brother. So my younger brother's name is Chuck Shaver, and I'll send you guys his LinkedIn too, but it's Chuck Shaver. And the reason he worked with me for 2 years. And the reason I'm pointing people to that direction, if you're a solopreneur or you just want individual training, is because he does two things. First off, he's much more active on LinkedIn than I am. He's got great tips every week and stuff. But he does two things I don't do. Number one, he does individual live coaching for people. So a very high touch service, but he also has on-demand training, which I don't have, which is kind of that, super convenient, do it whenever you want type of thing. So I would say connect with my brother, Chuck Shaver. And the other thing is a timely thing. So I got approached by the Northern California, they call it the Bay Area. I got approached by the Bay Area Global Travel Business Association, and they asked me to do a virtual LinkedIn workshop. So it's still an hour virtual like this, but it's a more structured. It's all going to be showing them how to do things on LinkedIn. So it's more tactical and structured rather than a dialogue. Anyway, it's February 20th, and they have basically all these different donation levels. But the point of the whole thing is 100% of the proceeds from registration, they're donating to LA Fire, to an organization that helps children affected by the LA fire, right? So it's a super good cause, sponsored by the Global Business Travel Association. And I'll send you guys that link too, if anybody wants to get like some real hands-on thing while they are serving a great cause.
I love it. Yeah, send that to us and we'll put that in the show notes. I think that's amazing. Or if you send that, I'll do a post about it. I think that's awesome. Yeah, great. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. We got definitely some good clips about things we can implement right away. As soon as we finish, I'm going to go adjust my banner really quickly. Got to add my book. So you're a great reminder there. And just thanks for sharing your knowledge. And we're happy to have you. We'll have you again soon.
Absolutely. Well, I enjoyed it, guys. Good luck on the book launch and good luck with the squats.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Kurt. Good to see you.
That's round of applause here for Kurt. Bye. There we go. All right, Mandy, another great show in the books. Can we remind everyone who and what we have to look forward to for next week?
We got a real slacker next week. We've got our very own Amani Roberts on the show in a very first interview. I've never interviewed Amani before. And we're going to talk about The Quiet Storm, talk all about your book, and it will be coming from a place of a reader. So I'm going to read it and ask you a bunch of questions about it. And we're going to hear all about the book and Amani and your background and music. And it's going to be super fun.
All right. Can't wait. Excited for that. Thanks again to Kurt for appearing with us today. Make sure that you rate, review, subscribe on the platform you're watching or listening on. Feel free to share this with a friend. And with that, we will see everyone next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for being here.